The rules of the new scenario were simple and merciless. Find a safe room before midnight, or die in the dark with the monsters. And there was one more rule, spelled out with a cheerful grin by the creature that ruled this station: you could always steal someone else's room. In Chungmuro, the apocalypse had just legalized robbery, and every survivor was about to become either a thief or a victim. Kim Dokja, as usual, intended to be neither. He intended to break the game itself. The Dakibi's announcement rang through the station like a death sentence dressed up as a game show. The third main scenario, Green Zone. Category, Main. Difficulty, C. The conditions: occupy a green zone in the station and survive the monsters that emerged each night at midnight, for 7 days. The reward, 1,000 coins. And the Dakibi added its cheerful clarifications. The rules are simple, it beamed. Occupy a green zone before anyone else. You can also steal someone else's green zone, of course. That single sentence changed everything. It wasn't just a survival game. It was an invitation to turn on each other, delivered with a smile. You better hurry, the creature sang. If you can't find your own green zone by midnight, you'll be in deep trouble. Well, good luck then. The station erupted into panic. Survivors scattered in every direction, hunting for unclaimed rooms, and the ugliness began almost immediately. Somewhere in the crowd a blade flashed. Die already, a man snarled, driving his weapon toward a stranger whose only crime was standing in a doorway first. It's nothing personal, he panted. I just don't want to die. That was Chungmuro now. Nothing personal. Just murder, with a deadline. The green zones varied in size, some holding only a single person, others, like the fortress the landlord Pildagong occupied, holding up to 70. And there were nowhere near enough for everyone. Kim Dokja gathered his people and laid out the plan. Let's split up and find a room. Hyan Seong and Sangha on one team, Huiwon and Giliang on another. And me, Dokja said, I'll go on my own. If none of us have found a room 20 minutes before the scenario starts, let's meet back here. They nodded and scattered into the chaos. But as Dokja moved through the corridors alone, his mind was already working through what he knew, and what he knew was grim. In the original story, Jaihai had snapped at Namwon over this exact crisis. There are no rooms left in Chungmuro. The landlord coalition had seized them all long ago, and Yu Junghyuk had known it all along. Every unclaimed green zone in this station was already spoken for. The search his friends were running was doomed before it began. The only real option was to attack Pildagong's fortress, and that was suicide. While he waited for the truth to make itself obvious, Kim Dokja conducted a quiet experiment, one that had been itching at the back of his mind for days. He sat down, pulled out his phone, and simply stared at the screen. To anyone watching, it looked like nothing. And that was exactly the point. Because someone was always watching. What are you doing, staring into a blank screen, came the irritated voice of the channel. You're boring the constellations to death. The constellation prisoner of the golden headband was wondering what he was up to. A blank screen, Dokja repeated innocently. You mean this? And inside, he smiled. Because the screen was not blank. On it, plain as day, was the text file that had started everything. 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse. The complete novel, all 3,000 chapters, sent to him by the author on the morning the world ended, with a single attachment labeled Save All. The constellations could not see it. The Dakibi could not see it. The beings with the highest administrative power in this entire cosmic broadcast were staring directly at the most valuable object in the universe, and to them it looked like a dead phone. If they could see it, Dokja reasoned, they would have brought it up long ago. Which meant his greatest weapon, the script of the apocalypse itself, was invisible to everyone but him. It won't do me any good, he thought, to let Bai Hyong or the constellations know that I am a reader of this world. Some cards you never show. And a new question bloomed in the dark of his mind, colder and stranger than any scenario. The author who sent me this, he wondered. Just how powerful are they supposed to be? His thoughts were interrupted by an attacker, some desperate soul who had decided the quiet man sitting alone would be easy prey for a room. It was a fatal miscalculation. There was a blur of motion, a strangled cry, a thud, and the system chimed politely. Green zone occupied, 1 of 1. Kim Dokja stood over the fallen man in a room that was now, by the cheerful rules of the game, entirely his. A survivor cowering nearby, her face streaked with blood, shrank back against the wall. "Don't come any closer," she whimpered. Then, seeing his expression, "Don't worry, I won't steal your spot." "Really," Dokja said mildly. "You seem quite laid back, old man. Maybe you don't want to live anymore." The apocalypse had a way of making everyone a comedian. It was then that a familiar shadow appeared. Yoo Jung-hyuk, unhurried, unbothered, strolling through a station that was tearing itself apart, as relaxed as a man taking an evening walk. "You seem as laid back as I am," Dokja observed. And the regressor's answer explained everything about the gulf between him and every other survivor. "No one will dare come near my room," he said simply. "They know very well what's going to happen to them if they do." It was not arrogance. It was arithmetic. The only people in Chungnyeoro who could fight Jai-hai were the Landlord Coalition or Jung-hyuk himself, and everyone knew it. "I was impressed," Jai-hai told her master, "by how you stood up to Pil de Gong." "Are you really that strong?" someone asked. "As strong as master." The teenage swordswoman's devotion was almost comical. But Yoo Jung-hyuk offered Kim Dokja one piece of advice before he vanished into the dark, and it was the kind of sentence that rearranged the whole board. "You don't necessarily have to find a room," he said, "to survive the night." The team straggled back, and the news was exactly as bad as Dokja had known it would be. "We couldn't find a room," Hyun Seong reported grimly. The ones that existed were held by the coalition, and the coalition was charging rent. 2,000 coins per night. "What, that's ridiculous," someone exploded. "Are they kidding? I ought to split their heads open." "Dokja, do you know what they told us upstairs? They asked for a ridiculously high rent, right? You knew. Did you find anything, Dokja?" "No," he said. "Nothing." And so the reader raised 2 fingers and laid out the truth he had been holding all along. "We now have 2 options. The first option," he said, "is the easier of the 2. When that's the case, people usually end up going with the second. The first option was simple, brutal, and effective: find a weaker group that already held a room, kill them, and take it. The room the coalition's lesser men were occupying could house 5 people, and their stats weren't very high. Just a few of us would be enough. It was, by the rules of the scenario, perfectly legal. It was what half the station was already doing to each other. And to everyone's horror, the first volunteer was the smallest of them. "I'm not scared," little Giliang said, his young face set. "I'll do it." "No, Giliang," Sangha gasped. The boy who talked to insects had already learned the arithmetic of this world, and it was the most heartbreaking thing any of them had heard. Then Kim Dokja said the words that defined him, the quiet confession that separated him from every tyrant and murderer this story had produced. "I killed someone in Gumho Station," he said. "I did so of my own volition, and I don't regret it one bit. But..." He let the word hang. "Just because I killed someone doesn't mean that I enjoy doing it. I don't want to become a monster." It was not weakness. The man had toppled tyrants and baited demons without flinching. It was a line, drawn deliberately, in a world that kept demanding everyone erase their lines. The scenarios wanted them to become wolves. The Dakibi wanted a show of humans devouring humans. And Kim Dokja, who had read 3,000 chapters of what this world did to people, refused to feed it. Don't you think we already thought of that? Someone argued. They probably killed others to occupy that room as well. And if we carry on like this, we won't be able to complete future scenarios. The logic of survival pulled one way. The reader pulled the other. Dokja, Hyeon-seong said finally, I want to hear what the second option is. The second option will be arduous, Dokja warned. And one of us could even end up dying. He looked at the faces around him, the soldier, the office worker, the judge, the boy. If there's a chance for all of us to survive, Sangha said quietly, we should go with that option. One by one, they agreed. We'll go with the second option. And Yu Junghyuk, who had watched the entire debate from the shadows, gave his verdict as he turned away. I would have respected your choice, he said, no matter which path you chose. From the regressor, it was practically a blessing. Now that we've all agreed on the second option, Dokja said, you'll have to do exactly what I tell you. Please trust me, no matter how ridiculous I sound. If you fail to do that, we will all die. 5 minutes remained until the third scenario began. He led them down toward the tunnels, to the mouth of the dark where the tracks vanished into the earth. Monsters are likely to spawn from that direction, he told them. They will rampage through the station and make their way up to the ground floor. Then do we fight them off from here? Hyeon-seong asked. No, Dokja said. We can't. If we do, we'll all die. We need to split up for this plan to work. Hyeon-seong, Sangha, and Huiwon on one side. You have to trust me 100%. And then the system rang out across all of Chungmuro. The third main scenario is activated. From the deep dark of the tunnel came the sound every survivor would learn to dread, a rising tide of shrieks and claws, a red glow swelling in the blackness, the roar of a horde with no end. The ground rats were coming, hundreds of them, a flood of teeth and hunger surging toward the station. The others tensed to run. And Kim Dokja gave the most insane order of his entire apocalypse. When the monsters spawn, he said, I want you to run towards them. The horde burst from the tunnel. Now. The loneliest reader in the world charged straight into a wall of monsters, with a plan no one else could see and a boy on his heels. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Run towards the monsters. That was the plan. Not away from the horde, not up to the surface, but straight into the wall of teeth and claws pouring out of the tunnel. Kim Dokja's companions thought he had finally lost his mind. But hidden inside that suicidal order was a secret only a reader could know, a refuge buried in the walls of the station itself. The problem was, the secret had a price. And tonight, the one paying it would be Kim Dokja. You want us to run towards the monsters, they had gasped. Not towards Dongguk University Station. Yes, Dokja said. You have to run straight for them. And you have to start running after they've spawned. Then he gave them the detail that made no sense at all. Search the wall to the left, right before you run into them. The third main scenario activated, the horde burst screaming from the tunnel, and there was no more time for questions. They ran, straight at the flood of ground rats, hearts hammering, and at the last possible moment Sangha's hand slapped against the cold concrete of the left wall. Tap. And the world flashed green. The system rang out. Somebody has activated Chungmuro Station's secret area. The hidden area, refuge of the brave, has been activated. The wall opened. Where solid concrete had been, a green zone blazed to life, and the group tumbled inside as the horde thundered past. Hyeon-seong slid in last, and the counter sealed behind them. Green zone, 3 of 3. They stood there, gasping, staring at each other in disbelief. There are a few hidden green zones in the third scenario, Dokja had told them. They appear on certain surfaces each round, and can only be seen after the scenario has been activated. To think that there are green zones hidden in walls, someone breathed. Well, another admitted, we were the ones who jumped to the conclusion that green zones were rooms. That was the trick. That was the whole trick. Everyone in Chungmuro was killing each other over rooms, and the answer had been sleeping inside the walls all along, waiting for someone brave enough, or informed enough, to charge a monster horde to reach it. The refuge of the brave. It was named for exactly what it demanded. But then came the question that froze them all. What about Dokja? Because Kim Dokja was not with them. He was still out there, alone, in a station flooded with monsters. And he had planned it that way. Somewhere down line number 3, the reader was carving through ground rats in the dark, and his thoughts were cold and precise. There are only 2 hidden green zones on line number 3. The second one should be somewhere up ahead. He had given his people the closest refuge. His own was further, deeper, through more of the horde. That was the arithmetic of the plan, and he had done it without telling anyone. Along the way, he witnessed what greed did to men in this scenario. A survivor crouched in a small green zone, cackling to himself as he eyed a better room across the platform. To be honest, the man giggled, I just want to steal that room over there. This has turned out interesting. And above him, unseen, the Dekibi smiled. Shall we bring on the penalty? Snap. The system chimed sweetly. The scenario penalty has been applied. Partial green zones in the area have been deactivated. The man's sanctuary dissolved around him like smoke. No, he screamed. No. And the horde took him. The rules of Chungmuro were merciless even to those who played them, covet another man's shelter, and the game itself would feed you to the rats. Kim Dokja fought on through the tide, and even with his stats raised and his blade unbreakable, the sheer endlessness of it wore him down. To have survived an onslaught like this, even for a day, he thought grimly, Junghikyu is a monster. Would I be able to do the same if I spent every coin I had on raising my stats? He doubted it. And then, through the chaos, a familiar voice cut the dark. Dokja. The regressor himself, blade flashing, appearing at his side like a shadow with a sword. Not now, Dokja grunted. I'm busy. They fought back to back for a moment, and Yu Junghyuk asked the question that had clearly been bothering him for days. What? I don't get it, he said. Why are you going out of your way to help them? You would have done much better if you were alone. It would be easier for me if I did everything alone, and kept all the earnings for myself. And Kim Dokja, slicing a rat out of the air, gave the most honest answer of his apocalypse. To be honest, he said, I don't think I know the answer to that myself. Then, quieter, almost to himself, I once read a novel that went to shit because the protagonist did that. I'm definitely not a protagonist. I'll never be a hero or a savior. But his grip tightened on the sword. Gillian will not die. At least not today. He was carrying the boy on his back through a sea of monsters, and somewhere in that sentence was the entire truth of Kim Dokja. Not a hero. Not a savior. Just a man who refused, one small refusal at a time, to let this world take the people he had decided to keep. Then he reached for his newest weapon. Activating bookmark, number 1. The skill he had earned unfurled in his mind, a list of every person he had come to understand. The delusional demon, Namwon Kim. The steel blade, Hyen Seong Lee. The inciter, Inho Cheon. Bookmark let him borrow the abilities of those he understood deeply, or their strength like a borrowed coat. Hold on tight, he told Giliang, and the delusional demon's mad agility flooded his limbs. He dashed, a blur through the horde, weaving and leaping where no ordinary man could move, the boy clinging to his back as monsters snapped at empty air behind them. And there it was. He slapped the wall, the green light flared, and the counter blinked. Green zone, 1 of 2. Sanctuary. He shoved Giliang toward it, and then he stopped. Huh. Because someone was already standing there. A tall figure in a dark coat, unhurried amid the apocalypse, watching him with those cold, unimpressed eyes. Hey, Dokja said. Can you move aside? I know you can survive without that room. Yu Junghyuk did not move. I don't know, the regressor said flatly. I'm a bit tired today. It was, by Yu Junghyuk standards, practically a joke. But behind Kim Dokja's calm face, alarm bells were screaming. Damn it, how does Junghyuk know about this area when it's only his 3rd round? From what I remember, the first time he used a secret green zone was in his 4th round. The story was drifting again. The regressor kept learning things ahead of schedule, kept walking paths he should not have known existed, and every deviation ate away at the value of the reader's foreknowledge. There was no time to argue. The horde was closing in, and only one spot remained. At least take this kid then, Dokja said, pushing Giliang forward. Give me the child. Yu Junghyuk took the boy, and the counter sealed. Green zone, 2 of 2. Full. And Kim Dokja stood outside, alone, on a platform filling with monsters. No, wait, Giliang screamed from inside the light. Dokja. Above them, the constellations rendered their quiet verdicts. The bald leader of the peasants' army closed his eyes, unable to watch. The demon-like judge of fire looked down at the reader with pity. Even the gods thought they were watching a man's final moments. I told you you would die, Yu Junghyuk said, and there was something almost like regret in the flatness of his voice. The horde roared, a wall of glowing eyes and wet teeth rolling in from every side, hundreds upon hundreds of them, more than any single human had ever survived. And Kim Dokja raised his white glowing blade, rolled his aching shoulders, and gave the darkness his answer. I'm not gonna die, he said. The wave crashed down on him. Giliang's scream tore through the station, Dokja's name swallowed by the roar of the horde as monsters buried the spot where the reader stood. The scenario board glowed on, indifferent. 7 days of midnight attacks, and this was only day 3. Somewhere under that mountain of claws and fangs, the loneliest reader in the world was fighting for his life with a borrowed demon's speed and an unbreakable sword. His story, as always, was only just beginning. 1,000 monsters buried Kim Dokja alive, and his companions screamed his name into the dark. But the reader had swallowed a secret right before the wave hit him, a stone that would make him a ghost among the living. The price? He would have to walk through his own worst memories to survive it. And in that haunted darkness, he was about to meet someone who should have been on the other side of the planet. A prophet with a stolen demon's eye, who had been watching him for a very long time. Giliang's scream still echoed off the tiles. Dokja. The horde had swallowed the spot where the reader stood, a mountain of claws and fangs and hunger. But underneath it all, Kim Dokja was completing the gamble he had planned from the start. That thing he swallowed, right before he was attacked. The Spectre Spirit Stone, the rare treasure he had carved out of the ghost creatures in the illusory prison days ago. The system chimed in the dark. You have become a ghost species. And just like that, the monsters lost him. Hundreds of ground rats surged around a man they could no longer see, no longer smell, no longer sense at all. He had turned himself into a phantom in the middle of the flood, untouchable, invisible, standing perfectly still while death poured past him on every side. But the stone had a second edge, and it cut deep. When consumed, it turned the user into a ghost species temporarily, yes. But as a cost, it amplified the traumas buried deep within the user's memory. And the system delivered the worst news: the effects of the fourth wall have been diminished temporarily due to increased immersion. The wall that had always stood between Kim Dokja and the horrors of this world, the strange barrier that let him watch tragedy like text on a page, was cracking. And through the cracks, his own past came clawing up. His head throbbed. Memories he had sealed away stirred in the dark, the ones that had made him the loneliest reader in the world long before the apocalypse began. Anything but this memory, he gasped, clutching his skull. I have to resist. Damn trauma. Some memories are not meant to be revisited. Any other person who tried this trick would have been driven mad on the spot. Kim Dokja survived it because even a weakened fourth wall was still a wall. Now, he thought grimly, I should wait for the effects of the fourth wall to return. And that was when he saw the figure. A tall silhouette in the shifting dark of the illusion. Jung Hee-kyu? No. The shape was wrong, and then it changed, and Dokja's blood ran cold. You're not Jung Hee-kyu, he said. Has the trauma been triggered again? Was this another phantom dredged from his mind? But no, this was no memory of his. A stranger stood before him. You look Korean, the figure mused, in a voice that didn't belong to this station, this city, this country. It's someone I don't know, Dokja realized. A foreigner, with blonde hair. And one eye that glowed like a red coal in the darkness. Could she be? Who are you? He demanded, and activated character profile. What happened next told him everything. Anna Croft is currently using mental barrier, level 6. His skills slammed into a wall of protection, a level of defense he had never encountered on any human. Character profile has penetrated the mental barrier. There is too much information about this character. Converting character profile to character summary. And the summary alone was staggering. Name, Anna Croft. Attribute, Prophet, Legendary grade. Just as I thought, Dokja breathed. The Prophet, Anna Croft. One of the most formidable characters in the entire original story. A woman on the far side of the world who could see the future, who planned to rebuild the ruined earth according to her own visions, and whose consciousness could slip free of her body and cross oceans, free from spatial limitations. She wasn't here in the flesh. She was here in spirit, projected into his mind through the crack the spirit stone had opened. How do you know me? She asked, genuinely curious. You see, Dokja answered smoothly, I'm also a prophet. The system betrayed him instantly. Anna Croft has activated lie detection, level 7. The skill has detected that you are lying. Dokja sighed. I guess this doesn't work on a real prophet. Tell me who you are, she pressed. And then she said something that changed the shape of the entire board. To be honest, I'm a little disappointed, she said. Do you really not know who I am? The ichthyosaur nucleus I sent you. You did receive it, right? And Kim Dokja's mind reeled. The auction. The mysterious benefactor. Are you the one, he managed, who requested broken faith through the auction house? It had been her. The anonymous bidder who had traded him an item worth 1,000,000 coins for the broken sword, the invisible hand that had been moving pieces around him since the earliest days. And she had used that trade well, with the nucleus's magic power, she had implanted an archdemon's eyeball into her own eye socket. That was the red glow. A demon's eye in a prophet's face, letting her see across the world. "You," she demanded, leaning closer. "What is your name?" But the universe answered for him. The effects of the fourth wall have slowly begun to return. And Anna Croft, the woman who could see everything, suddenly saw nothing at all. "Why," she whispered, her demon eye searching the dark. "Why can't I see anything?" The wall was rising again between Kim Dokja and the world, and not even a legendary prophet could see past it. He was, once again, the one blind spot in every oracle's vision. She composed herself, and her parting words were a promise wrapped in a threat. "We'll meet again," Anna Croft said. "Wait for me until then, won't you?" And she was gone. The system finished its work. The effects of the fourth wall skill have completely returned. You have become immune to the effects of the illusory prison due to your skill. Kim Dokja dropped out of the fading illusion and hit the ground. "Damn it," he muttered. "This took way too long. I had my hands full already, and then I had to bump into Anna Croft." Anxiety gnawed at him. What if the third scenario was still running? What if he was still surrounded by ground rats? How much time had passed? Was everyone okay? And Jung Hee-kyu? His stomach dropped. What if he killed Gilyoung? If he did? He activated Dispel Evil and tore his way out of the last shreds of the prison. Dokja. The voices that greeted him were alive, all of them. Hyen Seong, Sangha, Hui Won, battered and exhausted and breathing. "It's over," someone cheered. "We made it." "We shouldn't be celebrating yet," Dokja said. "Sorry. We only survived for one day," he reminded them. Yesterday was the fourth day, so the siege had barely begun. "Dokja, no," Sangha protested. "You haven't slept a wink. What time is it now?" "It's 8:30 in the morning. About 30 minutes have passed since the scenario ended." He had been inside the illusion for hours. "I wasn't out for too long, then," he said, and looked around. "Where's Gilyoung?" "Oh, Gilyoung is," someone began, and pointed. And there, across the ruined platform, the boy who spoke to insects was standing with Yu Junghyuk. Deep in conversation. What, Dokja thought, alarm spiking. Why is Junghyuk? Damn it, I can't hear what they're saying. But someone else could listen for him. The system stirred. Level 2 of Omniscient Reader's viewpoint activated. And suddenly he was inside the scene, hearing everything. "Are you sure you won't come with me?" the regressor was asking the boy. "Yes," Gilyoung said. "If you do," Junghyuk pressed, "you'll become stronger at a much faster rate than you do with him." It was a recruitment. The protagonist of the story, the strongest man alive, was offering the child a place at his side. And the boy who had once summoned nightmares from the dark looked up at the legend and said, simply, "I'm still not going with you." "Idiot child," Yu Junghyuk muttered. But through the borrowed window of his skill, Kim Dokja heard the thought underneath the insult, the one the regressor would never say aloud. "That lucky bastard. I guess I'll have to keep him alive for a little while. Longer." Kim Dokja stood there, swaying on his feet, 3 days of battle and ghosts and prophets crashing down on him at once. "I should say something," he thought, "but I don't have the strength to. There's no more time to waste. I need to work on tonight's plans." Plans? What plans? If I don't. I need to think, but I'm too tired. The world tilted sideways. Didokja. He crashed into the arms of his companions, and for once, the man who never stopped calculating simply stopped. Just let him sleep, someone said softly. You should get off him, Gilyung. Fine. The system's voice rolled over the ruined station, patient and eternal. Third day complete. For more midnights remained, a coalition of landlords still ruled the safe zones, and somewhere across the sea a prophet with a demons eye had just added Kim Dokja to her plans. The loneliest reader in the world slept, surrounded by the people who refused to leave him. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja woke up richer, and it was the worst money he had ever earned. Because while he slept, the gods had been digging through his childhood, peering at the wounds he kept buried, and they had paid him for the privilege like tourists tossing coins at a ruin. Now the reader was awake, the fourth night was coming, and he had a plan that started with 4 impossible words. Let's go hunt the landlord. Hey! When are you going to wake up? The voice dragged him out of the dark. Dokja is finally up, someone called, and the battered group gathered around him. He had slept through the morning after 3 days without rest. And the first thing waiting for him was the system, listing what the stone's backlash had cost him. The constellation, demonic judge of fire, is sympathetic towards your trauma. The constellation, abyssal black flame dragon, shows interest in your past. The constellation, secretive plotter, waits to know about your mother. The constellations have gifted you 1,800 coins. Kim Dokja read the messages with a cold, flat expression. It looks like those bastards had a peek into my past. While the spirit stone had cracked his fourth wall open, the audience of gods had leaned in and watched his worst memories like a preview trailer. His trauma. His childhood. His mother. And they had liked what they saw enough to tip him for it. That was the star stream in its purest form, even a man's deepest wounds were content. But the night had earned him more than pity money. You have endured a night in Chungmuro without a green zone. You have become the second player in Chungmuro to have earned the Endless Dawn achievement. 1,000 coins. His total climbed to over 22,000. The second person ever to survive a midnight in this station with no shelter at all. The first, of course, was Yu Junghyuk. Even in achievements, the reader walked one step behind the regressor, and closed the gap a little more each day. What are the plans for tonight? Someone yawned. We could do what we did yesterday. No, Dokja said. That was a one-time thing. And here was the problem he had been chewing on since before he collapsed. The original novel had no information on where the hidden green zones would spawn on the fourth day. His script had a blank page exactly where he needed it most. The safe trick was gone, the rooms were all owned, and midnight was coming whether they were ready or not. So Kim Dokja stood up, cracked his stiff neck, and announced the only plan left. First of all, he said, let's go hunt down the landlord. We will put an end to the third scenario today. Dokja, what? How? But before the war, there was a quieter mission, and it said everything about who Kim Dokja was becoming. Hyen Seong was hurt, and not just in his thigh. The big soldier had been talking in his sleep, calling himself Private Hyen Seong Lee, snapping salutes at ghosts. He admitted when pressed, I guess it's because of trauma from my early years in the military. The strongest body in their group carried old wounds no stat could heal. And Dokja knew something the soldier didn't. According to the original story, Hyan Xiang's attribute should have blossomed back in Gumho Station, while defending everyone from the Kyolda gang. But the story had shifted, it was Huiwon who had undergone her transition instead. The soldier's flower had never bloomed, and it was stuck, waiting inside him. I need to have Hyan Xiang blossom his attribute, Dokja resolved. And I need to take care of Pildagong as well. 2 impossible tasks before midnight. His method for the first one was, frankly, adorable. He gathered the whole group and instructed them in a technique of relentless positive reinforcement, taking turns encouraging the wounded soldier. Anyway, please look after Hyan Xiang as I've asked, he told them. All you have to do is take turns cheering him on. And so began what the system, with a completely straight face, labeled Kim Dokja's intermission scenario, well done. Huiwon went first. What I like about you is how you're unchanging, she offered. You're like a large pine tree. The soldier lit up. My favorite song in the military was Green Pine Tree, he beamed. Hyan Xiang Li feels content, the system reported. Sangha told him she had never met someone so driven by justice, and the soldier began to ponder what justice truly was. Even little Giliang marched up and declared, Hyan Xiang, your muscles are awesome. Thanks, kiddo. Hyan Xiang Li's self-esteem increased. Hyan Xiang Li is awaiting the chance for his attribute to blossom. Brick by brick, compliment by compliment, the reader was rebuilding a broken man's spirit, preparing the ground for the moment his true power would finally flower. Along the way, the constellations noticed something else about Kim Dokja's uncanny insight. Dokja, someone asked, your supporting constellation isn't called One-Eyed Fortune Teller by any chance? The nickname belonged to Gungi, the infamous one-eyed tyrant king who claimed to read minds. Who made that squeaking noise, came the indignant reply from the heavens. No, Dokja laughed. It's actually just a skill of mine. Let's say it helps me understand people better. The gods themselves couldn't tell where the reader's knowledge ended and magic began. Then it was time for the dangerous part. Talent scouting, Dokja murmured, and went down to the first basement floor alone. The coalition's men were waiting, the same thugs who had watched him defy Pildagong. You've got some nerve to show your face around here again, their leader sneered. I heard you survived the night without a room. Did you really? Junghikyu must have helped you, right? Then came the offer Dokja had been fishing for. Isn't it hard living as Junghikyu's lackey? Why don't you join us? Pildu said he'll think about letting you in. But you'll have to bring those girls along too, of course. The leer in his voice made the sentence filthy. There were 11 of them in all, armed and confident. Hey, are you listening to me? I am, Dokja said mildly. Tell Pildo I'll think about it. And he walked away, having counted their numbers, mapped their positions, and confirmed exactly how little they suspected. He had barely reached the stairwell when steel whistled at his back. He twisted aside as a blade split the air where his neck had been. I'm a little disappointed, said Jai-Hai Li, sword in hand, materializing out of nothing. Dokja's pulse hammered. When did she get behind me? I couldn't sense her at all. Did she use the ghost walk skill to sneak behind me? Jai-Hai Li. She's one lousy brat, but she's good. The teenage swordswoman leveled her blade at him. You know what will happen if you make a deal with them, right? She had heard everything. Of course I do, Dokja said calmly. Huiwon will kill them all. But why, Jai pressed, why didn't you just kill them last night? Put that down, Dokja said. I'm here to talk. Talk. You came to see me? Yes. What is it that you want? She asked warily. Why are you standing over there? Master told me to guard the place, she said. I can't let anyone through. Not even you. So that was it. Dokja's eyes narrowed. Is this what Junghikyu has been up to? The regressor was making moves behind the board again, positioning his strongest piece as a wall. It looks like I'll have to hurry things up. I'm here because I need your help, he told her plainly. My help? I'm going to take out Pildu and his goons. Today. She stared at him. And then Kim Dokja did what he did best, he reached into a person and found the thread that moved them. If you don't help, most people here will end up dead. They'll all die anyway, she shot back. Is that what Junghikyu told you? Silence. Then Dokja spoke the words that made her blade tremble. I saw a broadcast of your first scenario, he said quietly. In the subway. It was of you killing your classmates. Her eyes went wide. I'm sure that wasn't what you wanted, he continued. Stop, she whispered. What the hell do you know? Nothing, of course, Dokja admitted. I'm just saying what comes to my mind. But if you don't help me today, you'll regret it. For the rest of your life. He held her gaze. I guarantee it. The girl who had been forced to kill her own classmates to survive, who hid her guilt behind a sword and a smirk, stood frozen at the top of the stairs. Your understanding of Jai Li has increased, the system noted softly. She does have a bit of a temper, Dokja reflected, but she didn't seem that cold-blooded. There is a way. A way we can only achieve if you help me. Back with the group, the pieces were falling into place. Will she be willing to help us? Sangha asked. Dokja checked his phone. 7 o'clock. It's time. He looked around at all of them, the soldier waiting to bloom, the judge with her killing blade, the office worker with her hidden gift, the boy and his insects. Tonight could be even more dangerous than last night, he warned. Are you all ready? They were. We'll proceed as planned, then. The system board glowed above Chungmuro. Main Scenario 3, Green Zone, Day 4. 5 hours remaining until the third scenario is activated. Somewhere below, in the fortress of guns and rented safety, the landlord Pildagong grinned his oily grin, counting rents, suspecting nothing, while the number of available rooms in the station quietly dwindled and desperate survivors circled his walls. He thought tonight would be another profitable midnight. He had no idea that a reader, a swordswoman with a broken past, and a team of blooming heroes were coming for his empire before the clock ran out. The hunt for the landlord had begun, and the loneliest reader in the world was done playing tenant. His story, as always, was only just beginning. The plan to bring down the landlord's empire did not begin with a sword or a bomb. It began with a broken soldier who believed in nothing, least of all himself. Kim Dokja had spent a whole day watering a seed inside that man, and tonight, in the middle of a fortress of guns, he intended to make it bloom. Because the reader knew a secret about Hien Xiang Li. In the story he had read for a decade, this timid, apologetic giant was one of the strongest supporting characters alive. The world just hadn't given him permission to be, yet. From now on, it's a battle against time, Dokja told his team. We must be quick. We have to make our move before the landlord coalition finds out. The pieces moved into position. Hui-1 and Sangha would take Giliang to platform number 4. And along the way, the coalition showed them exactly why this war was necessary. A woman cowered against a wall, surrounded by the landlord's thugs. "Stay away," she cried. "Don't come near me. Go away." "Is it just the two of you?" the men leered, closing in. "Where are the others?" "Help me," she screamed. "Please." "Oh, don't worry about her," one thug said casually, as if discussing furniture. "She just refused to sell her room to us." That was the coalition's business model in a single sentence. "Sell us your safety, or we take it. Let her go." The voice that said it was quiet, and it belonged to Hien Xiang Li. The thugs turned, incredulous. "What? Who are you? Who the hell are you to order us around like that?" But to understand what happened next, you have to understand what had happened on the stairs an hour before. "Excuse me, Dokja," the big soldier had confessed, his hands trembling. "I don't feel so sure about this. The others are counting on me to make this work, but I'm worried. I don't know if I can do this." And he was the center of the entire operation. Kim Dokja had looked up at this mountain of a man who had spent his whole life apologizing for taking up space, and said, simply, "It'll be all right. I know I can rely on you." The soldier had laughed, embarrassed. "Thank you for saying so. Actually, this is the first time anyone's ever depended on me. No one's ever relied on me. Even in the army." Then he'd gone quiet. "I get a strange feeling when I'm talking to you," he said. "It's as if you've known me for a long time." And Kim Dokja, who had known him for 10 years through the pages of a novel, who had read this man's future triumphs and wept at his sacrifices, could only stammer that he didn't mean it like that. "Hien Xiang Li is beginning to open up to you," the system chimed. "Your understanding of Hien Xiang Li has increased greatly." Now, facing the woman's tormentors, that same soldier stepped forward, and the system whispered what the reader had been waiting all day to hear. "Hien Xiang Li's attribute is almost ready to blossom. Hien Xiang Li wants to act out justice of his own free will. Not because he was ordered. Not because he was scared. Because he chose to." "Shall I get started then?" the soldier said, and rolled his massive shoulders. The fight erupted. Dokja spent his coins with a merchant's precision even as the brawl began, 1200 on stamina, 1200 on strength, pushing both stats to 18. "I need to maximize my stat growth with minimum investments here," he calculated. "I'll need the coins for something else later." Steel crashed, thugs screamed, and the strike team carved through the coalition's outer guard. "Let's go, Hien Xiang." "Okay." And from the panicking survivors rose the cry that meant the plan was working. "Pildu. Over there." The armament lord came out swinging. The stigma, militarized zone, level 4, of the character Pildu Gong has been activated. The fortress woke up. Turrets bloomed from every surface like metal flowers, and the air filled with the shriek of magic bullets. "You have trespassed into a private property," the system announced primly, as a storm of gunfire tried to erase Kim Dokja from the world. He dove, rolled, felt Round's hammer into his body, and the system delivered its beautiful news. Your stamina has reached over level 20, due to the effects of unbreakable faith. Your hardened body protects you like a plate of armor. The reader stood up out of the smoke, dusted himself off, and watched the landlord's confidence flicker. If it isn't the squatter, Pildagong drawled, covering his unease with a grin. From the look of things, I'm guessing you're not here to pay me. What is it? He must have upgraded his militarized zone skill, Dokja noted clinically. I've decided to give up on squatting. Interesting, the landlord said, eyes narrowing. So you're after my property? And the mask came all the way off. Pildagong's mini turrets are being loaded with enhanced magic bullets. The gun spun up with a rising whine. Die, the landlord said. The barrage that followed should have killed everything in the room. Dokja moved through it like a man threading a storm, but even his hardened body was flagging, and a blade found him in the chaos, opening a long wound. He's been wounded, someone cried. Are you alright, Dokja? And Kim Dokja, bleeding, smiling, looked past the landlord entirely, at the big soldier standing amid the wreckage, and gave the signal the whole night had been built around. It's now, Hien Xiang, he said. Go give them hell. Hien Xiang Li's attribute is blossoming. The soldier's fists clenched, and a golden light broke out of him like dawn cracking through a bunker wall. Kim Dokja watched with tears prickling his eyes, and for a moment he was not a fighter in a war but a reader witnessing his favorite chapter come true. This was one of my favorite scenes in the novel, he thought, overwhelmed. To see it happen before my eyes. This is the reason Hien Xiang Li was one of the strongest supporting characters in the entire story. The man nobody had ever relied on, the private who had been broken by his own army, the giant who apologized for existing, stood wreathed in golden fire as the system rang like a cathedral bell. A new stigma has been unlocked with the blossoming of his attribute. Hien Xiang Li has activated the stigma, Great Mountain Crush. The soldier roared, and brought his fist down. The world broke. The floor of Pildagong's fortress, the foundation of his entire militarized zone, cracked open like an egg. What? The landlord shrieked, the floor is cracking open. Turrets tumbled into the widening chasm. Thugs screamed and scrambled as the ground ate their weapons, their walls, their empire. In the original story, no one could match Hien Xiang Li's power when he used this skill, and now Chungyuro learned why. The system delivered the verdict in 2 clean lines. The green zone has been destroyed. Pildagong's private property has been demolished. The fortress that had taxed every desperate survivor in the station, the monopoly on safety itself, collapsed into rubble in the span of a single punch. Not stolen. Not occupied. Deleted. In the settling dust, 2 men found each other. Dokja, Hien Xiang said, golden light still dying around his shoulders. You told me that you wanted to hear my story when this is all over. I, too, want to hear your story, Dokja. I want to get to know you more. I'll only end up boring you, the reader deflected. Haha. I'm still curious though. And Kim Dokja felt the strange vertigo that never quite left him. It feels a little bizarre, he thought. A supporting character from a novel I read is interested to know about me. The people in these pages kept insisting on becoming his friends. From beneath a slab of his own broken fortress came a pitiful wheeze. Ugh. Help me out. Gong, armament lord of Chungmuro, one of the 10 evils, pinned like a beetle under the wreckage of everything he had owned. Kim Dokja walked over and crouched beside him, and his smile was the kind that made even a villain's blood run cold. But first, we should end this, he said. Wyu lousy, the landlord spat. And the reader leaned in close, his voice almost gentle. Let's take a trip back to a time, he said, when none of us owned any private property. The landlord's empire was rubble, his guns were buried. And his fate now sat in the hands of the man he had tried to shake down for pocket change. Somewhere above, the constellations roared with delight, and the fourth midnight of the Green Zone scenario was still hours away. The loneliest reader in the world had just repossessed a fortress. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had just demolished a landlord's empire, and his reward was a price on his own head. Because in this world, tearing down a tyrant did not make you a hero. It made you a target. And now every desperate survivor in Chungmuro, plus a furious rival Dakibi, plus a horde of monsters about to flood the station, all wanted the reader dead. His answer to all of it would be the most audacious recruitment of his entire apocalypse. Dokja stepped out of the rubble of Gong's fortress, and his teammates stared in disbelief. Dokja. Did you destroy them all? Someone asked. Yes, he said. All of them. I didn't realize you could destroy rooms like this, Hien Seong marveled. We bashed the floor in and it collapsed. And Dokja explained the rest of his cleanup. I asked Sangha, Hui-Wan, and Giliang to destroy the smaller green zones, except for the ones that belonged to Gong. Most of them had a maximum capacity of less than 3 people. The whole safety economy of Chungmuro was being deliberately dismantled, room by room. And there was a reason for that, a reason that would only become clear when midnight came. But the destruction had consequences. All the Dakibi in Chungmuro are up in arms because of what you did, one creature fumed. And a familiar, petty voice cut through the noise. Whose channel is Gong on? Biryu, BR3642. The Dakibi who took over your channel before. And his audience. This was the rival who had once hijacked Bai Hyung's broadcast, and Kim Dokja had just wrecked his star performer's storyline. Pipe down, Dokja groaned. I've had enough of a headache because of all the messages from the constellations. Did you forget? Mine isn't the only channel in Chungmuro at the moment. Don't you know what you've done? Sigh. You're dead meat now. Ding. A bounty hunter scenario has been started. The rival Dakibi had struck back the only way it could. Category, Sub. Clear condition, the constellations of Channel Biryu 3642 have put a hit out on the incarnation Dokja Kim of Chungmuro Station. Time limit, 10 minutes. Reward, 2,000 coins. Penalty for failure, none. A bounty, on Kim Dokja's head, broadcast to every knife-hungry survivor in the station. Do we get 2,000 coins if we kill you now? A thug sneered, materializing with his friends. Why, do you want to? As if, Dokja said, I'd consider it if it was 20,000 coins. Get behind me, Dokja, Hien Seong rumbled, stepping up like a wall of muscle. Relax, Dokja told him. We're not the ones they'll be fighting. Because Kim Dokja had already read the ending of this particular problem. He knew what was coming at midnight, and he knew the bounty would become irrelevant the moment it arrived. Jung Hee-kyu, who had gone mad due to the repeated regression, had destroyed all the green zones when he arrived in Chungmuro. That was the original story. This time, Dokja had done the destroying himself, on purpose, ahead of schedule. And the system now registered the consequence. All the green zones in the station have been destroyed. The main scenario system has been overloaded. The difficulty of the current scenario will be adjusted according to the remaining scenario duration. Ding. The current scenario has been renewed. And a new, far more dangerous scenario bloomed across the sky of Chungmuro. Main Scenario 3, Emergency Defense. Category, Main. Difficulty, B, Clear Condition, all green zones in the station have been destroyed, spawning the remaining monsters all at once. Survive the onslaught of monsters for the remaining scenario duration. Duration, 8 hours. Reward, 1,000 coins. Penalty for failure, death. This was the trap Kim Dokja had sprung, on the whole station and on himself at once. There were no more rooms to hide in. No more safe zones to rent. Everyone in Chungmuro, tyrant and tenant alike, now stood on equal ground before the same tide of monsters. Emergency defense has begun. The horde came. Roar. Shrieks tore through the tunnels as monsters poured out from every direction, drawn to the station now that every pocket of safety had been erased. What? A survivor screamed. What the hell are those? Run for the stairs, Dokja ordered. Hyen Seong. The soldier moved, but the survivors were panicking, scattering, and the coalition's leftover thugs turned their fear into fury at the man who had caused all this. What the? Move it. Do you want to die? You're the one who destroyed all the rooms, they howled. And they were right. He was. There are no more rooms in Chungmuro, Dokja told them, cutting through the chaos with cold clarity. There's only one way to survive. What the hell do you want us to do then? Fight, of course. Damn it. But the survivors didn't want to fight. They wanted to run up the stairs, away from the monsters, and Dokja knew exactly where those stairs led. See, could the other stairs have? Wait, this isn't what you said would happen. At this rate, they'll all die. I know, Dokja said grimly. The upper floors were a dead end, another swarm waiting. You won't survive even if you make it up here, he warned them, but terror is deaf, and the mob surged upward toward their own deaths anyway. No. The stairwell collapsed under the weight of monsters and men. There was no saving people who wouldn't listen. But there was still one card left to play, and it was buried in the rubble behind him. Kim Dokja turned and activated his skill. Personal skill, bookmark, activated. The list unfurled, the delusional demon, Namwoon Kim. The steel blade, Hyen Seong Lee. And the insider, Inho Cheon, understanding 20. He selected the third. Activating bookmark, number 3. Activating insight, level 2. Activation time, 5 minutes. Insight. The very skill that the smiling tyrant of Gumho had used to turn crowds into mobs, now borrowed by the reader for the opposite purpose. He walked to the edge of the pit where the demolished landlord lay half buried, and called down into the dark. Hey, Pildu. The armament lord looked up, bloodied and beaten, at the man who had destroyed everything he owned. Are you just going to stand there like an idiot? Dokja asked. Don't you want to live? With your power, you can save everyone. Why you, son of a Pildu, a nearby survivor begged, catching on. Please help us, Pildu. The third scenario isn't that hard to clear. If we all give up on the rooms, the scenario will spawn a number of monsters that we can handle. Pildu, if you fight alongside everyone else, we can all survive. And here the deep truth of the scenario surfaced, the thing Kim Dokja had understood from the very beginning. The real trap of this scenario was the green zones. The rooms themselves. As long as safety could be hoarded and sold, the strong would prey on the weak and everyone would face the monsters divided and alone. If everyone in Chungmuro had banded together to fight, more people would have survived. The landlords hadn't just been cruel. They had been the reason the station was dying. By destroying every room, Kim Dokja had forced the one thing that could actually save them, unity. The insight skill, amplified by the desperate pleas of the crowd, wormed into Pildu Gong's pride. Please help us, Pildu. Everyone, gather around. And the fallen tyrant, half out of ego and half out of the borrowed compulsion of Dokja's skill, hauled himself up out of the rubble. The stigma, militarized zone, level 4, of the character Pildu Gong has been activated. But this time the turrets did not point at children. This time they turned outward, at the horde. Go to hell, you bastards, the landlord roared, and his guns opened up on the monsters instead of the innocent. Whoa. Nice one, Pildu. His stigma really is impressive, Dokja observed. He seems to be using up a lot of mana. Is he going to be alright? His stigma is pretty mana efficient. He should be fine alone for now. The man who had extorted the weak became, for one night, their shield. His militarized zone bristled around the survivors, a fortress of guns finally aimed at the true enemy. Let's sit back and enjoy the show, Dokja said, allowing himself a rare moment of rest. Are you sure it's alright? What a relief, someone sighed. I needed to catch up on some sleep. And the man who had never stopped calculating leaned against a broken wall and watched a 10 evils villain fight to protect the very people he had once bled dry. The bounty resolved itself exactly as Dokja had known it would. With the whole station fighting monsters shoulder to shoulder, no one had time to collect a price on his head. The bounty hunter scenario has timed out, the system announced. The bounty on Dokja Kim's head has been removed. Are you still after the bounty? Dokja asked a defeated thug mildly. What a shame, I guess it's too late now. I am sorry. And Jai-Hai Li, the swordswoman who had helped him clear the green zones on his word alone, received her own quiet reward. Jai-Hai Li's supporting constellation reveals his nickname. The constellation, god of naval warfare, nods in acknowledgement. Even the legendary admiral watching over her approved. As the monsters thinned and Pilda's guns fell silent, the armament lord slumped, drained but alive, and the survivors he had saved stared at him in something like awe. I guess they weren't so lucky, one muttered, watching the monsters that had reached the fools on the upper stairs. Damn it, Pilda Gong panted. Damn it. He had been humiliated, demolished, and forced to become a hero against his will, and he hated every second of it. You should feel lucky that you're with me, Dokja told him. Then what about them? The landlord growled, nodding at the exhausted, grateful survivors. I guess, Dokja said with the faintest smile, they weren't so lucky. Chungnuro had survived its emergency, not because one strong man dominated it, but because Kim Dokja had torn down every wall that let the strong hide from the weak. The loneliest reader in the world had turned a bounty into a footnote, a tyrant into a bodyguard, and a monopoly of safety into a shared fight. The green zone scenario was almost broken. But almost was not over, and midnight always came again. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja had forced a tyrant to fight for the people he once bled dry. But borrowed loyalty runs out, and the landlord's rage was building under every gunshot. So the reader did something no human in this world had ever done. He reached past the villain entirely, and struck a bargain with the god standing behind him. And in the middle of that bargain, a message arrived that stopped Kim Dokja's heart cold. The strongest man alive was about to die. The battle had raged for hours. Damn it, Pilda Gong roared, his turrets blazing. Damn it. Why won't you bastards die? Pilda Gong's skill, militarized zone, has leveled up. Pilda Gong's skill, private property, has leveled up. The landlord was growing stronger by the minute, forced to defend the very survivors he despised, and his supporting constellations were feeding him power. It's been an hour since the battle began, Dokja observed. Pildu has leveled up considerably. This must have put his supporting constellation in quite a spot. The question is, will he be able to keep sponsoring him like this? But Kim Dokja had a more urgent worry, and it wasn't the monsters. But where is Junghikyu? How should I know? Jai-Hai grumbled. He's always busy. Busy? Sure, of course he is. He's always busy looking out for himself. Dokja frowned. What time did Junghik enter the dungeon? It was around 9 this morning, someone said. It's 8 p.m. right now, Dokja calculated. So it's been about 11 hours since he's entered the dungeon. 11 hours. The number lodged in his mind like a splinter, and a terrible suspicion began to form. But there was no time for it yet. He had a landlord to keep alive. He opened his phone and hailed a familiar voice. Bai Hyung, can you open the shop for a sec? The Dakibi's channel was thriving off the chaos. What? No way, Bai Hyung crowed, my subscriber count is skyrocketing right now. B7623B is preparing for an expansion. Look, my channel will finally. Hurry and open up shop if you don't want to lose all your subscribers, Dokja cut in. Just tell them you need a break for your channel expansion. Damn it, the Dakibi grumbled, I really don't want to. But it opened the shop. And Kim Dokja went shopping with intent. Here's 5,000 coins. Upgrade my membership to gold. You have spent 5,000 coins. Congratulations, you have become a gold member of the Dakibi shop. Then he bought the strange thing he'd come for. Item, support contract, price 10,000 coins. Item, medium mana recovery potion, price 5,000 coins. You have spent 15,000 coins. What are you buying that contract for? Baihyong squawked, alarmed. Did you forget our agreement? You promised not to sign with a constellation. What are you on about? Why would I sign with a supporting constellation? Because the support contract was not for a constellation. It was a contract that turned an employer into an employee, a formal bond of ownership and obligation. And Kim Dokja intended to use it on a man. Employer, Dokja Kim. Employee. He walked up to the exhausted, furious landlord, and the whole scheme became clear. You fool, Pildu snarled through the smoke, do you think I'll forgive you over this? He has a limit to how much he can sponsor, Dokja knew. His supporting constellation isn't that rich to begin with. Most of them had already left the channel or stopped gifting coins because now it's become boring to watch. The landlord's divine backer was running dry, and a constellation without an audience was a constellation without coins. Are you just going to die here? Dokja asked him calmly, or will you sign a contract with me? What? Pildu spat. I can't be a supporting constellation since I'm not a constellation. But I can still sponsor you. Now, will you sign a contract with me? Pipe down, Pildu. I wasn't talking to you. Because the reader was speaking over the landlord's head, directly to the being who owned him. And the god answered. Pildu Gong's supporting constellation reveals his nickname. The constellation, Defense Master, is dumbfounded. By your suggestion. I've never seen anyone who's offered to sponsor a constellation before, the god marveled. And why can't I? Dokja shot back. He's a constellation. Do you think he's going to make a deal with a mere human? That's what you think. He has no more coins left. And here Kim Dokja revealed the deepest law of this cosmos, the truth that governed gods and men alike. Stories are exactly like an account of incidents or events. In the world of the star stream, a story is a source of power. Constellations without stories cannot earn coins, and constellations cannot support new incarnations without any coins. When a constellation fails to spread their story through their incarnation, they are forgotten and perished. The Defense Master isn't like the monarch of the small fries. He cares about his incarnations. This constellation's home world had already perished during a previous scenario. So the Defense Master's story had long been erased from people's memories, fading toward the final death that waited for all forgotten gods. And Kim Dokja was offering it a lifeline, coins, a story, survival. So, what will it be? Dokja asked. Defense Master. The god deliberated. I think he might die, someone whispered of Pildu. Yes, he might die if we don't step in. And seeing how Pildu is dying, means that he is out of coins. Ding. The Defense Master wants to know the terms of the contract. The reader had hooked a god. The Defense Master began to review the contract. Then, cannily, the god added new clauses of its own. Clause 14, the employer must respect the employee's property rights and must guarantee Pildu Gong's right to live. Clause 15, the employer must assist Pildu Gong for his betterment. Well, Dokja shrugged, I was already planning to put him under some training, so I don't mind at all. The Defense Master will agree to signing the contract provided that you agree to the new clauses. And what mattered to Dokja most was Clause 3, the employer and the employee will share authority over the incarnation. The employer will be given authority over the employee's property. He read the terms, weighed them, and made his decision. I'll do it. The contract has been agreed upon. Employer, Dokja Kim. Employee, Pildu Gong. The effect was immediate. Dokja uncorked the mana potion and forced it on the collapsing landlord. Take it and fight. What's this? Pildu slurred. Pildu Gong's mana has recovered. Life surged back into the armament lord, his turrets roaring anew. But now he answered to a new master. Once I get out of here, the landlord seethed, I'll. Shut up, Pildu, Dokja said, and the contract's authority settled over the man like a leash. You have been given authority to command as per the contract. Well, then, get back to fighting. And don't mess with any of my friends. Pildu strained against it, But the words held him. The 10 Evils villain, the tyrant of Chungmuro, had become Kim Dokja's employee, bound by a god's own signature to protect the people he had spent months tormenting. The constellations watching went wild. The secretive plotter is intrigued by your idea. The prisoner of the golden headband drops his staff in shock. The abyssal black flame dragon is offended by your audacity. No one had ever done this. A human had reached up into the heavens and hired a god. It looks like I'm going to have to be someplace else for a while, Dokja said, turning away from the secured battle. What? Now? Because that splinter of worry had grown into a certainty he could no longer ignore. Junghikyu. It's been 11 hours. And Kim Dokja finally let himself remember what he knew about the man, the thing he had been circling all day. In the pages of the original story, Yu Junghyuk had challenged Chungmuro's hidden dungeon 8 times across all his lives. He failed twice and succeeded 6 times. He failed the dungeon during his 8th and 11th regressions. And in those failed lives, the regressor did not simply retreat. Yu Junghyuk had let go amidst the excruciating pain. I give up, he had said, in a snow quiet nowhere at the bottom of a lost life. In my next life. In my next life, I'll. That was the end of Yu Junghyuk's 8th regression. The strongest man alive, the hero who never broke, had killed himself when the pain became too much, trusting his own death to reset the world and give him another try. No way, Dokja breathed. It can't be. There's no way that could have happened already. Because the horror was this, right now, Yu Junghyuk was only in his 3rd regression. He was young in his cycles, still learning, still fragile in ways his later selves would never be. He went to the hidden dungeon in exit number 1, and he'd been in there for 11 hours. He failed the dungeon during his 8th and 11th regressions, but right now, Junghikyu is only in his 3rd. What will happen if he plays safe? If my hunch is correct, the regressor should be headed to his own demise. And so many things happened, I've lost track of time. The story had drifted so far from the script that the reader could no longer trust the ending he had memorized. He's only in his 3rd regression. Why won't he play safe? He stood up, and the decision was already made. So, who's this bastard that you mentioned? The group asked. Is he worse than Pildu? Of course he is. Kim Dokja gave his orders fast. I've left Hyen Seong and Sangha to keep an eye on Pildu. He'll stop the monsters there, so it will be safer for them. He handed off the landlord's care, throw him a potion every 40 minutes, and turned toward the exit. Wait, Jai-Hai called, grabbing her sword. Where are you going? Good, Dokja said. You can come too. Where? And the words that came out of Kim Dokja were not calculation, not strategy, not a reader working an angle. They were fear. Junghikyu is in danger. He ran, Jai-Hai at his side and Giliang behind, out of the station and toward exit number 1, toward the hidden dungeon where the protagonist of the entire story had walked 11 hours ago and never come back. Headed to his own demise. Junghikyu will die today. The loneliest reader in the world sprinted through the dark to save the one man who had never once called him a friend. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja ran into a dungeon to save a man who wanted to die. And to understand why the strongest hero in the world would walk calmly toward his own death, the reader had to face a truth darker than any monster. For Yu Junghyuk, dying was not defeat. It was a reset button. A way to abandon a broken world and try again. And Kim Dokja was about to chase him into a place where fiction itself came alive. They reached the mouth of the hidden dungeon in exit number 1. You have discovered a hidden dungeon, the system announced. A new hidden scenario has arrived. But then a colder line followed. This dungeon has already been discovered. The discovery achievement cannot be obtained. Someone had come here first. Yu Junghyuk. Are you sure about this, old man? Jai-hai asked, gripping her blade. Is Master really in danger? How do you know that? And why are you trying to save him? Cut the crap, Dokja said. It's because he's useful. It was a lie, and everyone could feel it, but Kim Dokja wasn't about to explain the truth. It's no wonder that Jai-hai and the constellations are puzzled to see me so eager to save someone who's out for my neck every chance he gets. The secretive plotter is curious to know why. Looks like someone misread my intentions. But the reader carried a memory that explained everything, a conversation from deep in the original story. I remember something Junghyuk had said, when his regression count had reached double digits. Then what happens to the world after I regress, Yu Junghyuk had once been asked. And his answer revealed the entire tragedy of the regressor's existence. Because every time he died and went back, he did not save this world. He abandoned it. He left behind a reality that would continue on without him, broken and doomed, while he restarted from the beginning in a fresh timeline. It sounds noble at a glance, Dokja reflected, but he's saying that he doesn't care about the world he's abandoned. What happens in a world where the regressor has died? Or does the world continue to exist, like a parallel universe? There was no mention of the worlds Junghyuk had abandoned anywhere in the story. Whether it's science, magic, or whatever. And the hero's own answer had been chillingly simple. I don't know, Yu Junghyuk had said. I just picked the world where the most people can be saved. He treated entire universes as drafts, keeping the one that turned out best and letting all the others die. That was the loneliness of the regressor, a burden so vast it had already driven him to suicide in 2 of his lives. I'm here to stop Junghyuk from regressing by death, Dokja said. If this were his later self, the 10th or 20th regression, he wouldn't have worried. But this Junghyuk was only in his 3rd life, still young, still capable of breaking. To ease the tension, Jai-hai tried small talk about the only thing she loved. Hey, was it? Are you any good with swords? Yes, I love swords, Dokja said. I know, right? Swords are the best. It's exhilarating to cut something. Oh, so you know that feeling too? Even racing toward death, a teenage girl found a moment to fangirl over blades. Let's head upstairs, Dokja said. They pressed deeper, past torn movie posters lining the walls of an abandoned cinema, and the strangeness thickened. Dokja, all the posters have been ripped, someone noticed. I wonder who did it. Beats me, Dokja said, though he suspected. And then the trap sprang. A flash of light swallowed them whole. Whoa, what's this? Jai-hai yelped. Zoom. The projection beam of the cinema washed over them. You have been shot by the projection beam, the system reported. The screening will now begin for your floor. And the world dissolved, the concrete and dust of Chungmuro giving way to something impossible, a vast, humid, primeval jungle under an ancient sky. Are we? Jai-hai breathed. We're inside a movie, Dokja realized. This world has been created by the cinema master, who will be on the 8th floor of this dungeon. The cinema dungeon. A place where the boss brought films to life, and challengers had to survive each screening to climb. The main attractions of the cinema dungeon are the stages that are hidden within the posters. To clear all the stages and keep the rewards for himself, Junghyuk had probably planned to tear down every poster. That's why they'd been ripped. The regressor was hoarding the whole dungeon, stage by stage, monster by monster. Just where are we? Jai-hai wondered, staring at the jungle. What movie is this supposed to be? You'll find out soon, Dokja said. The ground shook. Thud. Thud. Out of the way, kid, hurry, Dokja shouted, yanking Giliang aside as something enormous came crashing through the undergrowth. A creature leapt into view, and the little boy's eyes lit up. Grab. Giliang caught it, or rather, it landed near him, a towering green insect the size of a man, mandibles clicking. This is a Titanoptera, Dokja said. It's an insect from the Triassic period. What? Jai-hai gasped, soared up. But Giliang, the child who spoke to insects, was already reaching out to the giant bug with wonder instead of fear. What's with him? Jai-hai said as the boy and the monstrous insect regarded each other. And Kim Dokja understood what the boy understood. We might be able to get through this without much issue, he thought. Because Giliang was making friends with the very creatures that were meant to kill them. Dokja pieced the puzzle together, drawing on the deep well of story knowledge and, this time, real-world history. This world, this specific movie, was built around a very particular figure. Jean-Henri Fabre. The great French entomologist, the man who had devoted his life to understanding insects. The film they were trapped inside took its theme from him, and that theme was the key to the whole stage. Jung-hik, you must have skipped this stage based on its theme, Dokja realized, because most rewards correlate to the theme of the movie the cinema dungeon is based on. The regressor, who had no love for bugs, had torn past this screening. But Kim Dokja had brought exactly the right companion, a boy whose entire gift was communion with insects. But I doubt he knows, Dokja thought, that this stage gives out a very important reward. Where Yu Jung-hyuk saw a worthless bug level, the reader saw a treasure custom-made for Giliang. But the dungeon was not done. New shapes crashed through the jungle. Thud. 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 What? Someone screamed. The ground is. Figures came stumbling out of the trees, and Jai-hai recognized them. They're the men from earlier, she said. Coalition survivors, or challengers, swept into the screening too, panicking and running. Help, one cried. And then came the thing that was chasing them. A shadow fell across the clearing, and two red eyes ignited in the dark. Growl. I think I know what movie this is, Dokja said, his voice tightening. Me too, Jai-hai agreed, raising her sword. Something vast and reptilian emerged from the tree-lean, jaws parting around rows of teeth, a predator from the dawn of time given flesh by the cinema master's power. Kim Dokja read its profile, and even he felt the weight of it. It's a Tier 7 beast monster, he said. But instead of fear, a grin spread across his face, because the reader knew the oldest rule of dungeon diving. The harder a hidden dungeon is, the better the rewards. Gwa. The beast roared, a sound that shook the primeval trees, and charged. The survivors screamed, scattering before it. This was the true screening of this floor, not the gentle insects of a naturalist's dream, but the monsters that shared his prehistoric world, brought to murderous life. And this was the moment Kim Dokja had raced 11 hours to reach, though he did not know yet exactly where Yu Jung-hyuk lay. Somewhere deeper in this dungeon, on a higher floor, the strongest man in the world was fighting a battle he might choose to lose, ready to let go amidst the excruciating pain and reset the world one more time. The reader had a boy who could turn monsters into allies, a swordswoman with a legendary constellation, and a head full of a story that was drifting further from its script with every passing hour. He had a Tier 7 beast in front of him and a suicidal hero somewhere above. Kim Dokja set his jaw, tightened his grip on his unbreakable blade, and stepped between the charging monster and the people behind him. He had walked into a movie to drag a dying man back into the story. Whatever waited on the 8th floor, whatever the cinema master had made of Yu Junghyuk, the loneliest reader in the world was coming for him. His story, as always, was only just beginning. A tyrannosaur made of living cinema was hunting them through a prehistoric jungle, and Kim Dokja's plan to beat it was insane even by his standards. Because the reader had figured out the true rule of this dungeon, the secret the strongest man in the world had missed. You did not win the cinema dungeon by surviving the movie. You won by giving it a better ending. And Kim Dokja was about to direct the bloodiest action finale this jungle had ever seen. Gwa. The Tier 7 land dragon, a full Tyrannosaurus Rex, burst from the tree line with jaws wide enough to swallow a car. The survivors scattered. Wait, mister, Jai-Hai shouted, are you going to fight that thing? Sigh, Dokja breathed. If we want to open the exit, we have to. Open the exit? That building should be the central research lab, Dokja said, nodding at a structure looming in the movie's backdrop. Did you forget? We're in a movie. And in a movie, you did not simply escape the monster. Let's give it an amazing finale, he said. The T-Rex activated its power. Tyrannosaurus Rex has activated the skill, Carnivorous Fear. A wave of primal terror rolled off the beast, the instinct that had frozen prey solid for 100 million years. But it broke against the strangest shield in the apocalypse. Personal skill, the fourth wall, has blocked the carnivorous fear. Where everyone else's knees buckled, Kim Dokja stood calm, watching a dinosaur the way a man watches a film. Giliang, get behind me, he ordered. Hui-Wan and Jai-Hai, spread out. And now the boy who spoke to insects revealed he spoke to more than bugs. Character Li Giliang has activated the skill, Dinosaur Encyclopedia. Dokja blinked. The child could read the beast like a book. Tyrannosauruses are more agile than they look, Giliang recited, but they have a narrow vision and are vulnerable to attacks from the sides. What? Jai-Hai said. I read about it from an encyclopedia when I was young, the boy explained. When you were young? I mean, when I was much younger than now. The kid was maybe 10. Lucky for me, Dokja thought, they know what they're doing. The plan crystallized. Kim Dokja would be the bait. I'm the only person who's fit to be a tank at the moment, he said. Those two should be able to kill that thing while I'm distracting it. Chomp. The jaws came down and Dokja rolled, the T-Rex's teeth snapping shut on empty air. Tier 7 land dragon species, Tyrannosaurus Rex, has chosen you as its target. Dokja, I'll distract it, Giliang cried, trying to help. No, Giliang, Dokja barked. You're supposed to get behind me. I can do it. No. The reader would not spend a child to save himself. He drew the monster's fury onto his own body, weaving through its blind spots exactly as the encyclopedia promised, his unbreakable faith stamina soaking hits that would have pulped anyone else. Splat. Splat. He led the beast in a circle, buying seconds, opening its flank. Jai-Hai, Hui-Wan, now. The two women struck from the sides where the dinosaur could not see. Slash. Their blades bit deep, and then Kim Dokja unleashed the trump card he had been saving. Unbreakable Faith special property has been activated. The ether affix is changed to fire. His sword, the reforged blade of a demon lord's broken faith, ignited. He drove the burning weapon into the monster, and flame roared up its prehistoric hide. Gwa. Whoosh. The T-Rex thrashed, a living bonfire in the jungle, crackling and shrieking as fire consumed the thing that terror could not touch. Thud. The tyrant of the Triassic crashed to the earth, dead. You have received 1,000 coins for your achievement. You are the first to successfully hunt a Tier 7 land dragon species, Tyrannosaurus Rex. And with it came the reward the reader had come for. The enraged T-Rex DNA ampoule. An item that increased all stats by 10 for a 30-minute duration, usable only within the cinema dungeon. A vial of pure prehistoric power, exactly the kind of edge that could turn an impossible fight into a survivable one. Kim Dokja closed his fingers around it. And this ampoule that I got as a reward for taking down the T-Rex, he thought, it can only be used in the cinema dungeon. But you can't beat the final floor without it. Especially if Jung Hee-kyu is in the situation I think he's in. Because now, at last, they found him. Deeper in the jungle, slumped against a tree, was the strongest man in the world. Yu Jung-hyuk, wounded, barely conscious. Wake up, Dokja said, kneeling. Slowly take deep breaths. His wound is too deep, he realized. He won't be able to survive. Cough. Help me. The regressor stirred, and the reader felt the fear that had driven him 11 hours confirmed. Yu Jung-hyuk had gone into this dungeon alone, in only his third life, and it had nearly finished him. But before Dokja could tend to him, another voice cut through the trees, and his blood ran cold for a different reason. How did you know about this place? Prophet. Who are the prophets? She was here. Or her projection was. The blonde woman with the demon's eye, standing impossibly in the middle of a movie inside a hidden dungeon. And the survivors who had wandered in were staring at her in awe. They are guardians, one breathed, of the revelation. A revelation? A revelation, Dokja thought, it's both fascinating and ridiculous. Because he alone understood what she truly was. The only person to have such an ability in the story is Anna Croft, who has the future vision skill. Her demon eye let her see fragments of what was coming, and desperate people had turned those glimpses into a religion. It can only be one thing, Dokja realized. There must be others like me out there. Other readers, other players who knew too much. The board was crowded with hidden hands. There was no time to unravel that mystery now. With the T-Rex dead and the immediate danger past, Dokja called a pause. Let's take a quick break, shall we? And the group had earned one strange, wonderful moment of peace in the middle of a monster movie. This is so good, someone marveled, tearing into roasted meat. Dinosaur meat. It's so delicious that I'm about to cry. They feasted on the very beast that had tried to eat them, laughing in the prehistoric sun, and for a few minutes the apocalypse felt almost like an adventure. Then came the ampoules. Kim Dokja had found a cache of stat amplification vials, stamina, mana, agility, strength, and he needed to distribute them wisely, because they would matter on the floors ahead. Since Dokja found them, someone suggested, he should distribute them. But be fair, Even the constellations were watching how he shared the loot. A few constellations who are fond of monopoly are displeased with the situation. The demonic judge of fire is expecting you to be fair. And Kim Dokja, being Kim Dokja, turned even fairness into a game. How about rock, paper, scissors, he proposed. The winner takes an ampoule for every round. Good, someone cheered. But Jai-hai eyed him suspiciously. You're going against me? Are you sure? I'm really good at this. Oh, really, Dokja said mildly. And then, quietly, he cheated with a skill no one could see. Personal skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Character Jai-hai Lee is about to play scissors. He knew her move before she made it. Rock, paper, he called, and threw rock. Jai-hai's hand came down as scissors. No way, she gasped, how could I lose every round? Round after round, the reader read her mind and won, hoarding the ampoules with a straight face while a teenage swordswoman slowly lost her sanity. It was the pettiest possible use of a god-tier skill, and it was glorious. But Kim Dokja distributed the winnings where they were needed, and one exchange revealed his heart. Hey, mister, Jai-hai said later, catching him handing something over. What are you doing? What? Stamina ampoules. Hui won, look, he's trying to. You're not going to keep it all to yourself, are you? Jai accused. What? No, of course I'll share. Quick-witted brat. Can't you give me the strength ampoules? A helpless little girl like myself needs them, she wheedled. Does she really think I'm going to fall for that? He gave them out fairly in the end, and the constellations approved. And with their stats boosted and their bellies full of dinosaur, the group was ready to climb. And here Kim Dokja explained the secret of the entire dungeon, the thing that made him certain he could save Yu Junghyuk where the regressor had failed. The key to clearing this dungeon, he said, is not to recreate the movie's actual endings, but to produce an ending that pleases the cinema master. By the way, the cinema master here is all about action. That was the trick Yu Junghyuk, grimly efficient, had never grasped. You didn't have to follow the script. You had to give the audience a show. But are you sure we ended the movie right? Someone worried. I don't think anyone hunted down a Tyrannosaurus Rex in the movie. They didn't, Dokja admitted, but isn't it more fun this way? It's fine, since the genre is action-adventure fantasy. The cinema master is happy with the movie's ending. You have reached the first ending credit. Cast, Dokja Kim, Hui-Won Jong, Jai-Hai Lee, Giliang Lee. You have each received 500 coins for your performance. You can now move on to the next floor. What? Jai-Hai said. Do you see now? Dokja told her. You just have to kill everything. Bye, Titano, Giliang waved sadly to the giant insect he'd befriended. You can't take the monsters you find in a level of the cinema dungeon, Dokja reminded him. All you can take with you are the items. He held up the glowing vial, the enraged T-Rex DNA ampoule, the prize that increased all stats by 10. It can only be used in the cinema dungeon, he thought, but you can't beat the final floor without it. Especially if Jung Hee-kyu is in the situation I think he's in. The system laid out the road ahead. Hidden scenario, cinema dungeon. Category, hidden. Difficulty, A-. Clear condition, defeat the master of the cinema dungeon. Time limit, none. Reward, 4,000 coins. 8 floors of living film stood between them and the cinema master, and somewhere in that gauntlet was the answer to whether Yu Junghyuk lived or reset the world by dying. Kim Dokja tucked the ampoule away, gathered his cast of unlikely heroes, and stepped toward the next screening. The loneliest reader in the world had turned a death trap into a blockbuster. His story, as always, was only just beginning. Kim Dokja was climbing a tower of living movies to reach a dying hero, and each floor demanded a bloodier ending than the last. He would sink a doomed ship, murder a villain who begged like a real man, and loot a treasure room full of the weapons of gods. But the higher he climbed, the more he saw the wreckage Yu Junghyuk had left behind, and the closer he came to a naval battle that could not be won. Flash. Spark. The cinema dungeon consumed them again, hauling them into the next screening. How many more floors do we have to clear? Jai-Hai asked. Jung Hee-kyu should have cleared some already, so it shouldn't take too long, Dokja said. Because everywhere they went, they found the posters already torn. Can we only enter the movies where the poster hasn't been ripped? Looks like it. The poster seems to have ripped after we cleared it. The regressor had blazed through this dungeon ahead of them, hoarding floor after floor. Let's hurry, Dokja said. We don't know how many more movies we have left. The cinema dungeon consisted of 9 floors in total, counting the one basement floor, and they were racing to the top. The 4th floor threw them into the ocean. They found themselves aboard a great luxury liner, and the sea rolled beneath them. Barf, Jai-Hai gagged, clutching her mouth. It's all right, let it out. I have seasickness. And Dokja recognized the film instantly, a doomed romance aboard a sinking ship. Isn't this the movie where the ship sinks? Someone asked. Looks like it. Do we have to sink the ship ourselves? The lead characters assembled around them, and there was the hero, the charming drifter. Jeb Dawson, Dokja named him. Dawson. It was him. To clear the floor, they had to deliver the ending the cinema master craved, and this movie ended with the ship going down. But there was a villain aboard, the film's antagonist, and the cinema master wanted action. Let's kill him, Dokja decided. What? Jai-Hai recoiled. Didn't you say that the cinema master is all about action? Then it'd be better for us to just off him now. But when they cornered the man, he did not behave like a movie prop. That is true, but he looks so real, Jai-Hai whispered. What? This is supposed to be a movie, but he looks like a real person. This isn't time to get all sentimental, Dokja said, though even he felt the wrongness of it. It's either him or us. We're definitely alive, but he is just a character. And a villain at that. Even if he's a real person, what other choice do we have? Right? Stab. The blade went in, and the man died screaming like anything that had ever lived. The cinema master is somewhat pleased with your ending. The door to the next floor has opened up at the stern. You have reached the second ending credit. A character, Dokja thought grimly, watching the light leave the man's eyes, or a real person. It was the ugliest question in the dungeon, and there was no time to answer it. But the fifth floor was not a movie. It was a reward. You have entered 5F, the reward room. Wow, look at all these items, Jai-Hai gasped. The room was a treasure vault, packed with the props and costumes used by the actors who starred in the films, and here, in the strange logic of the star stream, those props had become real. Powerful. This reward was the reason I decided to come to the cinema dungeon, Dokja admitted. Because the greatest movies were built on the greatest legends, and the legends had left their weapons behind. They may not be as good as a constellation artifact, he noted, but they are well-made copies and are grade A items. My goodness, Jai-Hai breathed, look at this sword. Item, Mikazuki Minakika, replica. A grade A weapon, a sword forged by the master smith Minakika, its crescent moon curve one of the most beautiful blades ever made. This is magnificent, Dokja marveled, the blade is sharp and it's very light. Now you're finally going to have a proper sword, Hui won. He armed his people from the vault of gods. For the mighty Hien Seong, he found thunder god Thor's hammer, a replica of Mjolnir, a hammer that could only be wielded by those who were worthy. Item, Mjolnir, replica. Why won't it come out? Jai-Hai grunted, straining to lift a weapon that judged the hearts of those who touched it. There was the shield of Hercules, a reinforced armor suit, treasures scattered through the room like fallen stars. But you are limited to 2 reward items per person, the system warned. Even in paradise, there were rules. And here Kim Dokja, distributing the loot, ran into his usual comedy. Isn't that reserved for special people? Someone protested when he claimed a piece. I'm special too, damn it. Why me? This is so unfair, Jai-Hai whined as he outmaneuvered her again. What are you going to take, Dokja? Giliang asked. He chose carefully, thinking always of the fights ahead. And he claimed one more thing that no one else wanted, a book. Acquired the skill book, Sharp Observation. It's not a combat skill, but it will be useful nonetheless, he said. This skill allows the user to approximate a character's overall stats. It could be useful against characters like Sangha or Giliang, who are impervious to a character profile. In a world of hidden abilities and sealed profiles, the power to simply measure someone at a glance was worth more than any sword. Let's go see what our regressor is up to, Dokja said, and they pressed higher. But now the signs of Yu Junghyuk grew darker. All the posters here have been torn as well, Dokja observed on the 6th floor. This could only mean that Jung Hikyu is currently in the boss room. Unfortunately, Jung Hikyu is nowhere to be seen on floor 6. Was he really the culprit? Dokja wondered, seeing the devastation the regressor had left. Don't spoil it, a constellation chided. There may be people who still haven't seen the movie. The secretive plotter expresses his distaste for spoilers. Even the gods watched these films like an audience, and they wanted their endings unspoiled. Then the sixth floor's screening seized them, and Kim Dokja's stomach dropped, because he knew exactly what film this was. It's impossible not to know what movie this is as a Korean, he said. Jung Hee-kyu, that bastard, left us one of the hardest movies to clear. The sea again. But this was no romance. This was war. They stood on the deck of a warship, and across the water came a fleet without end. Over there, Jai-hai pointed, her voice tight. How are we supposed to beat that? We may be outnumbered, Dokja reasoned, forcing himself to stay calm, but since it's based on a battle from history, we could. Damn it. I have to remain calm. Because this was the Battle of Myeongnang. The most famous naval victory in all of Korean history, when a single admiral with a handful of ships had shattered an armada of hundreds. There was only one man who could win a battle like this. And he was the reason the whole floor had gone wrong. Where is the general? Dokja demanded, searching the deck. The general. General Sun-sin Lee. Admiral Lee Sun-sin, the greatest naval commander who ever lived, the man history credited with the impossible victory. But the deck was slick with blood, and the great general lay fallen, dead. And the truth crashed over Kim Dokja like a wave. Did the cinema master change the plot, he thought, staring at the corpse. Could it be? Are we supposed to win the Battle of Myeongnang without General Sun-sin Lee? This was what Yoo Jung-hyuk had done. This was the trap. The regressor, grimly efficient, tearing through the dungeon, had killed the one character they needed most, or the cinema master had rewritten the ending to punish them, and now they had to achieve the most famous underdog victory in history with the hero of that victory already dead on the deck. 12 ships against 330, and no admiral to command them. We're supposed to have 12 more ships, someone said hopelessly, staring at the empty sea where the Korean fleet should have been. Why? The odds were not merely bad. They were the exact impossible odds of the real battle, minus the one man who had made the impossible real. The enemy armada opened fire. Bang! Bang! Cannon fire tore across the water, splintering the deck, and the sea itself seemed to rise against them. Get down, everyone, Dokja shouted. Turn the ship back. Bang! 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 The screening became a slaughter, hundreds of guns trained on a handful of survivors on a doomed warship, water and fire and wood erupting all around them. There's no time to waste, Dokja thought, his mind racing through everything he knew, every scrap of the story, every rule of the cinema master, searching for the ending that would satisfy a god of action when the real hero was already gone. Damn it, how are we supposed to beat that? It's impossible. And then, through the smoke and the cannon fire, he saw her fall. Jai-hai Lee, the swordswoman with the god of naval warfare at her back, the girl who got seasick and loved blades and had followed him into a movie, was down on the blood-slicked deck as the armada bore down. Jai-hai. The reader's cry tore across the burning water. He had climbed 6 floors of living cinema, armed his friends with the weapons of gods, and dragged himself within reach of the dying regressor. But now the hardest screening of all had turned deadly, the impossible battle was closing its jaws, and one of his own was about to be swallowed by it. Somewhere above, on the 8th floor, the cinema master waited, and beyond it lay whatever was left of Yoo Jung-hyuk. Kim Dokja gripped his new blade, the war raging around him, and refused to let the ending be written without him. The loneliest reader in the world stood on a sinking deck against 300 ships, and the outcome of the most famous battle in history hung on whether a man who had only ever read about heroes could become one. His story, as always, was only just beginning.